Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to United Stateside. This is the newest Manchester United fan channel coming to you directly from the United States. And today we just have to talk about the calamity that we witnessed yesterday. Manchester United won, Chelsea 3, a game that's so frustrating that really sucks a lot of the life and the confidence that we had been able to accumulate over the past few weeks. Now at this point, you start to think, okay, are we really going where we need to as a team? What are the holes that we need to fill in the offseason? Do we need to bring back Dean Henderson to replace De Gea, despite De Gea's mountainous body of work that he's given us over the past several years and helping to keep us relevant despite all of the, volatility that our team has gone through? Do we need to really bolster our back four? We've spent so much money on the likes of Harry Maguire. I think there's a lot of love and confidence in Victor Lindelof, but it's becoming more and more evident that this center back pairing really isn't going to do it. And I think that we really need to start to consider, what are our options in the transfer market for another center back. I don't think that at this point we can replace the likes of Harry Maguire, especially with all the money that we've invested in him. The fact that he's a captain, that at least for the time being, he's got all his vote of confidence, but of course, how long is that going to last if he continues to play like this? And the same could be said for Lindelof. I just think that, and many have echoed this sentiment, we really need somebody with speed, more athleticism in the back there to pair with Maguire if that's who we're going to go with over the long term. And so there were just so many different areas we could start with this game to really break it down. But I think you do have to start with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and how he set the team up. Going with the five at the back. He's gotten a lot of flack for this. And in general, our performance over the course of the game, but especially in the first, 30 to 40 minutes. And I think generally rightfully so. But with that being said, I do actually see the logic of going with the five at the back, especially given how difficult at the time we've had with the high press from teams like Southampton and Crystal Palace. I talked about this in both of my last two videos where, I'd mentioned that this high press is really giving us a lot of problems, and this is very obvious to be the new strategy that teams are implementing against us, whereas before, it was all about sitting back off the ball, letting United have the lion's share of possession, knowing that we didn't really have the creativity to break teams down. Well, that's changed. Now we have the likes of Bruno, we have Pogba, and so teams instead are trying to ensure that the pressure is maintained on the likes of Harry Maguire, on Victor Lindelof, keeping the ball out of the feet of Bruno and Pogba. And that's worked to great effect against us. It's obvious that we don't have the ability to deal with this high press. And so I think that the back five was implemented as, kind of a counter to this, a counter to what, all I figured Frank Lampard would be rolling out. And we simply weren't able to keep Chelsea out of our own half regardless. And so after Bay went off, we had to switch back to a back four. We brought on Martial, brought on Pogba pretty shortly into the second half, and it just wasn't enough. And I do think that a lot of this came down to the fact that Ole was kind of caught in two minds, so I do get it. We want to focus on the Premier League. We want to focus on getting that last Champions League spot. And at the same time, we have this FA Cup, which is still important to us. It's very badly timed. But you just wonder, okay, at what point do these players start to get a rest? We've gone with the first 11, the same 11 players for, pretty much the entirety of the last few weeks since lockdown, and so these guys are obviously very tired. They're knackered, and so I totally get it. These tired legs, eventually they're going to become less effective, and there's really just two critical games after this in the Premier League that we have to win. We have to win in order to make sure that we get that last Champions League spot. So you figure, okay, maybe this is the game where you start to rotate. But with that being said, it's very evident that Ole cares a lot about our performance in the FA Cup, given the fact that we poured everything we had at Norwich in the last game when we weren't able to get an easy victory to start out. And so, you're going to come into this game and then rest everybody? I don't know, perhaps not. And instead, I could see what Ole was thinking. Go with the 5 at the back. Ideally, you hold Chelsea off for long enough, maybe nick a lucky goal, and then you bring in the rotation at some point in the second half. I could see perhaps bringing in, if we had been leading at that point, bring in Pogba for Bruno, rotate Rashford for Martial, and the idea at least initially was not to go with our strongest 11. But of course, once Chelsea score the first and then the second goal, all of that just goes out the window. You have to bring on your strongest squad, and then at that point it's like, well, you might as well have just started with them in the first place. If we had just gone with our strongest side up front, we would still have gotten that same effect of playing these tired legs. But then you start stronger, maybe then you get a goal, and then you can bring players off in the second half to rest them. And instead we got the worst of both worlds, where obviously we lost, and the players are now tired as well, and we have a game coming up in a couple of days. So that's something we're going to have to deal with, and it's just very frustrating how for all the people out there saying that you can't rest the team that's doing well, and if it ain't broken, don't fix it. This was evidence as to why you don't rotate the squad as much as we did. And it's also frustrating because a lot of the players that we did bring in were players who were having decent seasons up until we went on lockdown. Fred was having a tremendous season. He could have been our player of the year up until lockdown. Dan James, I'm not really sure what's happened to him. He's definitely fallen off, but at least for the first few weeks of the Premier League, he seemed to be pretty exciting. And it's obvious that in certain games, teams have given him a lot of respect. We'd seen this in our game against Manchester City, where Manchester City definitely gave him a lot of respect down the wing, and he caused problems with them, for them, even with his off-the-ball movement. And so in this game, he's just totally ineffective, and it's just clear that once you get past our starting 11, we just don't have any depth beyond that. And it's just really a shame, because a lot of these players should be giving us depth. We should be able to bring in Fred to, give a rest to the likes of Bruno and Pogba, and it's just clear that he's not able to come in and play at the same level he was before. I think perhaps it's just because these players feel like they're on the periphery of performances now, and perhaps they just haven't been able to buy into our goals post-lockdown as much, because they feel like they're not participating. But that, in my opinion, is not acceptable. These are professionals, and yes, your position in the team is always up for grabs, depending on your performance, and people just have to recognize that. So, just very, very frustrating. Where do we go from here? I guess, who do we talk about next? As far as it goes with David De Gea, I mean, he's just given us, if you look at the body of work he's had over the past several years, it's just really helped keep us relevant despite all of the turmoil and volatility that's gone on with the team, with the squad, with the coaching staff. De Gea has really been that constant that's kept us in it. And at this point, you just have to wonder, is this it? Are we witnessing just sort of this premature collapse of what was a world-class goalkeeper? I mean, you can make the case 2017, 2018 that he was one of the top 1 to 3 goalkeepers in the world, and it's just clear that he's not that anymore, and I'm just not really sure what happened to the guy. I have no idea, but these errors are essentially coming at this rate of 1 per game, and in this game he had 2 errors. Perhaps you could blame all 3 goals on him. Despite all of the defensive mistakes that we had, despite the miscalculations, I think, in both the setup and the substitutions that we made, ultimately, if you have 2017 De Gea in that squad, those goals aren't in, right? We're potentially tied, or maybe just losing 1-0 in the last 10 minutes of the game, and that's a completely different game. But 1, 2, then 3 goals go in, the heads drop, and that's it. And you could see that was it, because the players were obviously just not really into the game at that point. Even after Bruno's goal, which was just a consolation, it was just very evident. And so beyond that, I think Wan-Bissaka is, at this point, he's just tired. He runs 10 to 20 miles per game. He does so much work for us on his side of the field, and so he hasn't been playing as well for the last few games. I think if you were to forgive anybody, perhaps it's him, but still, certainly not performing at the level that we've been used to over this season. Brandon Williams is a kid, and he made a very rookie mistake this game. Even after his mistake, you'd figure that De Gea would be able to clean it up, but no. So it's evident once again, and I talked about this in my last video, that we were missing Luke Shaw. And so, besides the defense, I think Bruno didn't have the best game. Even in an off game, he was still able to get us a penalty goal, which he took really coolly. And he could tell that he was giving 100% effort and being a leader on the pitch, and still shouting at players, pointing at them where they need to be. But it's just not enough. We can't just look to Bruno and have him be the answer for everything. Just because Bruno plays, it doesn't mean that we're going to win every game, especially by himself, not with Pogba in there. If there was any saving grace to come from this, I think it would be the fact that, it would cut to Ed Woodward's face, his disappointed, masked face, every 15 minutes or so. And I'm glad that he was there to witness it. I'm glad that we were there to watch him witness it and essentially say to the board, this is not a finished product. If anybody had seen our performances over the past few weeks and thought that, this is it, we're ready to challenge for the Premier League title, this game was a wake-up call to say, actually we're not. Actually, we still need significant investment into this squad. We still need to bring in a Sancho. We still need to probably bring in a Grealish to rotate with the likes of Bruno and Pogba. And guess what? We probably need either a center back or a defensive mid in the summer transfer window, and then at the January transfer window, then you're looking to bring in the other. Where do we go from here? I think once again, we don't have time to lick our wounds. I think we just have to go with our starting 11 again, our strongest 11, and hope that Luke Shaw is ready for, both the West Ham game, but especially the Leicester game. Once again, we did eat a big piece of humble pie against Chelsea, but there's still a lot to play for this season. We have to get that last Champions League spot, and there's still a trophy to be won with the Europa League. So you just hope that the team isn't just hanging their heads at this point, and it's really just about this last week. So I'll be watching the West Ham game. I'll see you then, and I'll be giving my thoughts after the game.